Welcome to Tech Blueprint, a window that lets you know the latest technology news in the world. In recent years, the United States has made great efforts in the field of chips in order to strangle China. Whether it is suppression or blockade, there are many tricks. But after a long time, even their own senior officials began to shake their heads and sigh, "This road is not feasible and cannot be stopped." Not only that, they also dragged their allies, companies such as TSMC and Samsung, into a miserable state. What's more interesting is that Japan and South Korea, the two little followers, follow the United States on the surface, but secretly plan to take advantage of the chaos. So what is this global drama around chips like? Let's talk about the background first. After entering the 21st century, chips, a small thing that cannot be seen or touched, have become the core of global technological competition. Don't look at it as small, it is the heart of high-tech products such as smartphones, cars, computers, and artificial intelligence. Without it, these things are just a pile of scrap metal. As the world's largest market, China's demand is not small at all, but in the production of high-end chips, the technology is still a little behind. The United States believes that if it can strangle China's lifeline in chips, it can suppress China's future technological development. So starting in 2022, the United States has introduced a series of policies, such as restricting China's purchase of lithography machines, prohibiting TSMC from manufacturing advanced chips for China, and creating a Chip Act to specifically subsidize its own companies. But reality is always much more complicated than planned. On the one hand, China did not sit idly by and try to improve its semiconductor industry chain. On the other hand, the United States allies also began to be somewhat disobedient, and Japan, South Korea, and even TSMC were all making their own calculations. This makes this chip war more exciting than a TV series. The matter is actually very simple. The United States wants to use technological blockades to make China stuck in the field of high-end chips. In 2022, the United States passed the Chip Act, which subsidized TSMC, Samsung and other companies with tens of billions of dollars, requiring them to build factories in the United States, and at the same time restricting them from exporting high-end chips to China. The United States also joined forces with ASML in the Netherlands to prevent them from exporting the most advanced lithography machines to China. It can be said that the United States wants to suppress China's chip industry with a whole set of combined punches. However, this plan looks perfect, but there are a lot of problems in actual operation. For example, Liu Daing, the head of TSMC, bluntly said that the cost of building a factory in the United States is too high and it is not cost-effective at all. For another example, China does not rely on imports, but also begins to develop chips on its own, and even takes the initiative in the field of chip raw materials. According to data, 68% of the world's gallium resource reserves are in China, which means that it is almost impossible for the United States to completely strangle China's chip development. Since 2023, this chip war has gradually escalated. The United States has made frequent moves, restrictive policies one after another, and even ignored the interests of its own companies. Take TSMC as an example. This company is the leading company in global chip foundry. It should be a good helper of the United States. But TSMC's process of building a factory in the United States is full of difficulties. According to the latest news, its factory in Arizona will not be able to mass-produce 4nm chips until the second half of 2025. During this period, due to the high labor costs, high tax rates and complex policy processes in the United States, TSMC can be said to be bitter. At the same time, China is not idle. On the one hand, China has accelerated its independent research and development of chip technology. On the other hand, by improving the industrial chain, it has taken the initiative in chip raw materials, such as gallium and rare earths. Data shows that from January to November 2024, China's chip exports have exceeded 1 trillion yuan, which shows that the US blockade has not achieved the expected effect. What's more interesting is that Japan and South Korea have also begun to sit still. Japan announced that it would re-enter the semiconductor field and planned to produce the most advanced chips based in Hokkaido, and even made a bold statement to return to the top of the industry. South Korea plans to invest 20 trillion won to support the development of local chip companies, intending to follow TSMC's model. The climax of this chip war is obviously the situation out of control under the multi-party game. From the perspective of the United States, they wanted to slow down China's technological development through technological blockades, but they did not expect that not only did they fail to achieve their goals, but they also made their allies complain. The construction of TSMC's Arizona plant is a typical example. TSMC was originally a company with extremely high profit margins, but after building a factory in the United States, various costs soared, which put a heavy burden on it. More importantly, TSMC's production capacity in the United States mainly serves American technology giants such as Apple, Nvidia, and AMD, which means that the cost of buying electronic products for consumers will rise in the future, and ordinary people will suffer in the end. China is taking steady steps, taking advantage of its market and resource advantages to gradually get rid of its dependence on foreign high-end chips. Especially in chip raw materials, China's advantages have left the United States somewhat helpless. For example, 68% of the world's gallium resource reserves are in China. Gallium is an important raw material for making chips. Without it, high-end chips cannot be made at all. This makes the United States have to worry about the security of its own industrial chain while blocking China. As for the attitudes of Japan and South Korea, it is even more interesting. On the surface, they are staunch allies of the United States, but in fact, they are also unwilling to see the United States dominate. In 2024, Japan announced its own semiconductor revival plan, trying to regain the right to speak in the industry through huge investments. South Korea, on the other hand, follows the TSMC model and plans to invest a lot of money to support local companies. By the end of 2024, the chip war has begun to take shape. Although the US blockade policy has restricted the development of China's chip industry to a certain extent, it has not achieved a fatal effect. On the contrary, China has gradually gained more initiative through independent research and development and the improvement of the industrial chain. TSMC and Samsung are dragged down by US policies and are not having a good time. Japan and South Korea have taken the opportunity to increase their investment in the semiconductor field, hoping to occupy more market share in the future. Views on this chip war. Who is the final winner? The controversy continues. So the question is, can the US blockade policy really stop China's technological development? Can China achieve a comprehensive breakthrough in the field of high-end chips? What's more interesting is that in the face of the US's tough attitude, will countries and companies such as TSMC, Japan, and South Korea choose to continue to cooperate or find another way out? This game in the chip field may have just begun.